When you have a recipe and it doesn't make the quantity that you want, you tend to use a multiplier. Okay, so you know this yourself. You've seen a recipe and the recipe makes 6 scones and you want actually 12 scones. Well, you'll get 200% of the recipe, or you'll multiply it by 2. So that's easy when it's nice round numbers. If you want to make 75% of the recipe, then you multiply by 75%. And we've also already looked at the fact that 75% as a decimal, you divide by 100, so it's 0.75. So you'd multiply each of the ingredient items by 0.75. So that's fairly easy. So the formula that you need to use to create the multiplier, if it isn't so obvious to you, is the quantity that you'd like to make divided by the quantity that the recipe currently makes. So for example, if the recipe currently makes 10 portions, but you would like to make 12 portions, okay? So you'd like to make, what you want to make is 12, what you currently have is 10, so it's the 12 divided by the 10. Okay, so 12 divided by 10 on your calculator gives you 1.2, and this 1.2 represents 120%, and you'd use this recipe, this multiplier, and multiply each of the ingredient items by the 1.2. So, for example, here's another example. The current recipe makes 18 pancakes, but you only want to make 12. You don't want to have all these spare pancakes that you've no use for. So our formula is the quantity that you want to make divided by the current amount that the recipe makes. So you'd like to make 12, so that's 12 divided by what it currently makes, which is 18, which gives you 0.667. And we tend to round it to 4 decimal places. Okay, another example, you've got a recipe that makes 6 pies, but you'd like to make 8 pies. Okay, what you want to make is 8, so it's 8 divided by 6, which gives you 1.33, and this is your multiplier. So here is an example of us using the multiplier. Okay, the recipe states that it will make 10 cupcakes, but you'd like to make 15 cupcakes. Okay, so you'd like to make 15, so it's the 15 divided by the 10 and not the other way around. So that gives us 1.5. And our recipe then is 100 grams of flour, 125 grams of butter, 150 grams of caster sugar, and 2 eggs. Don't anyone ever make this recipe. I think I just made that up. Okay, so what we do then is we use this 1.5 multiplier to calculate it out. So 100 grams of flour multiplied by 1.5 gives us 150 grams of flour. Our 125 grams of butter multiplied by 1.5 gives us 187.5. Our 150 grams of caster sugar multiplied by 1.5 gives us 225 grams of caster sugar, and our 2 eggs multiplied by 1.5 gives us 3 eggs. Okay, and so we've now converted the recipe over to the new proportions, and this recipe will now make the 15 cupcakes. So let's combine now what we learned in the previous examples about converting across into metric and then converting the recipe to the proportions that we'd like. So here we've got 1 pound and 4 ounces of plain flour, a pound of raspberries, a pound and 3 ounces of sugar, 1 pint of eggs, half a pint of milk, and 3 ounces of cocoa. So step number 1 is to bring it over into metric. So for our first item, we have 1 pound 4 ounces of plain flour. So that's pounds and ounces combined. Let's move it over and just have ounces. And we know that there are 16 ounces in every pound. So the 1 pound is actually 16 ounces plus the 4 ounces brings us up to 20 ounces. And then we're going to use our multiplier up here. Okay, and remember in the test that multiplier will be shown to you. So we know that there are 28.349 grams in every ounce, and we have 20 ounces. So multiply your 20 by the 28.349 grams. So here we are, we've converted them over, and the top one here is showing us that we've converted them over into just ounces. So again, we said we multiply the 20 ounces by the 28.349, and that gave us 566.98 grams. Okay, so now our flour is in metric. Okay, we had 1 pound of raspberries, which was 16 ounces. Okay, 16 multiplied by 28.349 grams gave us 453.584 grams of raspberries. Okay, 19 ounces of sugar. Okay, that was 1 pound 3 ounces. When you multiply the 1 by 16 ounces per pound and then added the 3 on, gave us 19. 19 multiplied by 28.349 gave us 538.931 grams. Okay, our eggs. 1 pint of eggs. Now this is pints. Let's look at our multiplier here. The bottom one there is the multiplier for pints. So we multiply the 1 by 0.473176 and it stays the same down here. We have half a pint of milk. Okay, so that's a 0.5 multiplied by 0.473176 and that gave us 0.236588 litres of milk. And then the cocoa, we had 3 ounces of cocoa. We're back up to the ounces conversion. So it's 3 multiplied by 28.349 grams, and that gave us 85.047 grams. So now looking at this recipe on the bottom half of this screen, this recipe, the first step is done. It's been converted into the older system, which was pounds and ounces and pints, into the new metric system, which is grams and litres and millilitres. Okay, so that's the first step. The next thing we need to do then is to convert it over to make the correct proportions. So we said the recipe that we have at the moment, it currently makes 22, but we would only like 10. Okay, so what we do is it's the desired quantity divided by the recipe quantity. So that's the 10 divided by the 22. So our multiplier for this recipe is going to be 0.4545. Okay, and then we use that multiplier and multiply out all of these numbers that we've already converted. So 0.4545 multiplied by the 566.98 for the flour gave us 258 grams of flour. And again, the 0.4545 multiplied by the next number down, which was 453.584, gave us 206. And you do use that multiplier for each of the items and they convert over as shown here. So you end up with 245 grams of sugar, 0.22 litres of eggs, 0.11 litres of milk, and 39 grams of flour. So this recipe has first of all been converted over from the previous imperial system, which used pounds and ounces and pints, to the metric system, which used grams and millilitres, and then it converted it over and didn't make 22, it now made 10, which is the desired quantity. Okay, so the next one then, if you want to hit pause in your video and have a go at this yourself, this recipe currently makes 14 portions of apple and almond pie. Adjust this recipe so it makes 22 portions, showing the correct ingredient quantities as well. So again, we need to convert it over into the metric system, and then we need to bring it over to the correct proportions. And again, you'll be given the conversion ratios within an exam situation. Okay, so hit pause and see if you can have a go on this. Okay, so the original recipe was 21 ounces of apples, so we multiplied the 21 by the 28.349 grams, and that gave us 595.3395 grams of apples. Okay, so 30 ounces of flour, again multiply your 30 by your 28.349 and that gave you the 850. Multiply the 50 by the 28.349 and that gave you 1417.475 grams of butter. Now the pint, the lemon juice was done in pints, so don't use the ounces one, we need to use the next one down. So 0.5 multiplied by 0.473176 gave us 0.236588 litres of lemon juice. Okay, double cream 0.75, again it's pints, use the bottom one there, 0.75 multiply by 0.473176. Okay, and it gave us that of double cream. 12 ounces of butter, we're back to the ounces converter now, so 12 multiplied by 28.349 gave us 340.194 of sugar. And then the almonds, so 10 multiplied by 28.349 gave us 28.3.495 grams of almonds. So now step number one, we've converted this over into metric. Okay, the next thing we need to do is to calculate our multiplier. So the original recipe made 14, but we wanted to make 22. So it's 22 divided by 14, which gave us 1.5714. Okay, so again, don't put too many of these characters into your calculator. You can really round it off at about 4, which would be fine. Okay, so what we're going to have to do now is use this multiplier here for each of our newly converted recipe here to do that. So hit pause on your video and have a go at that yourselves. Okay, so we used the multiplier here, and hopefully we used 1.571429 against the original ones there, and we got this for apples. Okay. And here's just a summary of all of the formulas that we used, just a little sort of a cheat sheet of all the ones that came up so far in our presentation. Okay, end of the video.